Welcome back. In this video, we'll be discussing the basic steps we need to perform on the data before we use any of the classes or functions from sklearn. First of all the models available in the sklearn library do not handle missing values on their own. So if you have a data where there are missing values in some column, you will have to impute the missing values before you train the model. So you can either go with the simplest methods like using the mean or the mode of the column, or you can use some more clever techniques like using some other existing column in your data, you impute the missing value. For example, imputing the missing value in a column age, either you can simply take the mean of the age column, or if you have another column which says gender and the marital status, you can use a combination of these two and generate the mean age for each category and then impute the values. Also, the models available in sklearn cannot deal with strings or categories. So for example, if you have gender given as male or female in your dataset, or a work type given as urban or rural, in this case you need to convert the categories into numbers before you build a model. So here is an example. Against each ID we have the gender of the person, and one way to convert these categories into numbers would be one-hot encoding, which is often known as dummy encoding. So in this case, I have created two new columns, one representing male, other representing female. So against each ID, if the given gender is male, I will put a 1 in the male column, and if the given gender is female, I'll put a 1 in the female column, as you can see in the third row. Let's try and do this in the notebook. So in the last video, when we were trying to train a KNN model on the given data, we saw an error which said that could not deal with strings. So in this module, we'll be dealing with the same. Let's start with importing the library pandas and reading the same Big Math Sales dataset. Let's look at the first few rows before we move on. So I'll simply type data.head and this will give me the first few rows. And here is the Big Math Sales data. Now let us see if there are any missing values in the data. So I'll use .isnull.sum and it will give me the sum of all missing values for individual column. So I can see there are around 1400 missing values in item weight and about 2400 in the outlet size. So I'm going to take up the simplest way of imputing the missing values. Let's just look at the first 10 rows for now. For the item weight column, I see that the 7th row has a missing value. Once we impute the missing values, I can simply check if the value in this row is not NaN, and that will confirm, right? So I'm going to use the mean value of the column item weight and impute the missing values using this mean value. So here I calculate the mean value, which comes out to be 12.857. Now I'll use the fill_NA function. So on the item weight column of the data, I am using the fill_NA function, which takes in the value which you want to impute. If you want to impute all the missing values with 0 so that the model can differentiate, you can do that too. Here I'm taking the mean value which I just calculated. So I'll give the value is equals to mean value. And let's again look at the first 10 rows. In this case, you can see that the 7th ID does not have any missing value now. It's replaced with 12.857. Similarly, in case of item outlet size, you can replace the values. So let's check what item outlet size looks like. And here is the first few rows for item outlet size. So in this case, we have a categorical column and there are a few missing values. You can take a mode of this column and replace the missing values with the mode. So you can do that as an assignment. Now let's understand how can we deal with categorical variables. So what are the categorical variables in our data? We have the item identifier, which is like a unique ID for each product. Then we have the item fat content, which have categories like low fat, regular or high fat, etc. And we have item type. Furthermore, we have outlet size, which we just saw is a categorical variable, and location type and outlet type again. So these are the categorical variables in the dataset. And before training any model, we need to make sure that we convert these categorical variables into numbers. So let's try this for a single column outlet type for now. And here if I look at the value counts, we have 4 categories and the highest value counts is in supermarket type 1. So I can say that the highest occurring outlet type is supermarket type 1, then we have grocery store and supermarket type 2 and 3. So okay, so these are the categories in the outlet type column. Now we'll simply use pd.getDummies and convert these categories into numbers, into binary numbers. So as you can see here, this is the same method that we just discussed. So for each row we get 1 in one of the columns and 0 in other columns. So we are creating 4 new columns because we have 4 categories. Now the first row had the category supermarket type 1, so we have 1 in this column and 0 for the rest. Similarly, the second row had supermarket type 2, the third one again supermarket type 1, and so on. So now these categories are converted into numbers, and this can be used to train the model. So in order to do that for all the categorical columns in the data, we'll simply use pd.getDummies on the complete data. And here I'm removing the item identifier column because it has about 1500 unique values. So in that case, you would get 1500 columns, which is not actually giving any useful signal to the model. So I'm going to remove that here. And apart from that, all the categorical variables in data will be converted into numbers. So we can run the cell, and here are the first 5 rows. So as you can see, these were the continuous variables and are not changed, and others were the categorical variables which are now been converted into binary numbers. So the same can be done with various other methods, and we'll understand how we can deal with categorical variables and what are the different ways to convert these into numbers in the upcoming modules. But for now, we'll simply impute the missing values with mean and mode and convert the categorical variables using pd.getDummies. I have already done this for the 2 most commonly used datasets throughout the course, which is the Big Mart sales dataset and the Titanic dataset. So for all the notebooks and the implementations that we perform in the upcoming videos, we'll be using a data cleaned version which has no missing values and no categorical variables. Thank you.